Hello, and welcome to the 741 channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today we're going to take a look at setting up my SDRplay software-defined receiver to receive whisper transmissions. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with WSPR, it's an acronym and it stands for Weak Signal Propagation Reporting, and it's generally used by ham radio operators to test their antennas and see how they're performing on a given day or at a given time. So the WSPR system is designed to use little, small, low-power transmitters to transmit small data bursts from your station. And then other stations that are tuned to receive the WSPR transmissions then report their signal reports up to a website, and then you can log on to that website and take a look at a map and see how well your antenna is performing. Now, I don't have one of the little transmitters, but I do have a software-defined receiver that's capable of receiving the WSPR transmissions and reporting my reception reports up to that same website. So even though I can't transmit, I can see how well my antennas are receiving using the WSPR system. So the software-defined receiver that I have happens to be an SDRplay RSPduo. I also have SDRplay RSP1 and 1As that would work just fine for this application. What I'm going to show in this video is somewhat specific to the SDRplay receiver, but any software-defined receiver that's capable of receiving HF signals should be able to be set up to do this in a similar way. So let's take a look at the hardware that I've got set up for this. First of all, you can see I've got the SDRplay RSPduo here set up. Now, I don't need the Duo for this. I could use a single receiver like the SDRplay RSP1A, or like I said before, any software-defined receiver that's capable of HF can handle this task. The antenna that I have connected is a 40 and 80 meter fan dipole that is out in my side yard, and it's up in the trees about 15 feet off the ground. I've got coax running into my shack, and I've got it connected through this SMA to SO239 adapter here to adapt it to the RSPduo. And then, of course, on the other end of the RSPduo, I've got a USB cable connected up to my computer. So now that I've shown you the hardware that I'm using, let's switch over to screen capture mode and take a look at the software. So now let's go through the software that we're going to need to get this running. First up, of course, I'm going to need a package to run the SDR. And since I'm using an SDRplay RSPduo, the package that I'm going to use is SDRuno from their website, which you'll find linked in the description below. If you're using one of SDRplay's other units, you'll want to download this version of SDRuno, or if you prefer, you can use HDSDR, which is available here, or SDR console. I'm not going to go through the software installation and setup in this video, but if you want to see that in more detail, I'll leave links in the description below to some videos I made on SDRuno and SDR console installation and setup. The next piece of software that I'm going to download and install is WSJT-X. And this is a software that will decode digital modes. Now, of course, there's a link to this software down in the description below, but you can see here from the description this downloads a bunch of different digital modes that are out there, including the one we're interested in today, which is WSPR. Now, again, I'm not going to detail the installation and setup of this software in this video, but I will leave a link down in the description to another video that I made that does go through the installation and setup in a little more detail. The last piece of software that I'm going to install today is the virtual audio cable from VB Audio. And just like the others, I'm not going to go through the installation of this software in this video, but it is pretty straightforward to install. As you can see here, I've got SDRuno up and running. I'm currently tuned to 7.038.6 megahertz, which of course is the frequency for WSPR on 40 meters. I've got the radio in LSB mode. Now over here in the auxiliary spectrum window, I also played around with the filter and kind of opened it up a little bit below and above the tuned frequency to make sure that I capture all of the WSPR signals that might be in the passband. Now, I found on some bands I need to open up the edges of the filter a little wider than on others to make everything work. Now, you may notice that there's no audio currently coming through, and that's because I've got the audio routed through virtual audio cable to the WSJT-X software. The way to do that under SDRuno is to go to the settings button on the RX control window, and then go to the output tab, and then go here to the WME output device pull down, and then change to the cable input VB-audio. And of course, to make that take effect, you're going to have to stop and then push play again. So next up, I've got the WSJT-X software up and running. And you can see here from the window that I've already been running this for a while, and I've got some stations that have been already decoded. If this is your first time running the software, and especially if you're interested in uploading your reports to the WSPRnet servers, what you're going to want to do is go under the File tab, go to Settings, and change some of the general settings here. The first thing you're going to want to do is put your call sign in over here, and then you'll also want to enter in your grid square as well. And if you're not sure what your 6-digit grid square is, you can find it by looking up your own call sign on QRZ. The next thing to change is under the Audio tab. This is where we can route the output of VB audio to the input of the WSJT-X software. So to change this, you're simply going to go under the Input pull down and then pick the cable output. And that should be it for basic setup. So once you've got the settings the way that you want them, the next thing to do is to go under the Mode tab and choose Whisper. As you can see, I've already got that active here. Once you're in Whisper mode, the next thing to do is to synchronize the frequency of WSJT-X to the frequency that you're tuned to. Now in my case, since I've got 40 meters active in SDRuno, I'm going to come down here to the frequency pull down and choose 40 meters here as well. And then one last setting over here, if you're interested in uploading your spots to the WSPRnet server, you just tick this box so that it's on. Now I almost forgot, there's one other thing that you're going to want to make sure is set up before you get going with this, and that is to make sure that the clock on your computer is synchronized to the UTC time standard. You can do that by doing a search for UTC time on the internet and pull up one of the sites that shows the UTC time with the seconds and make sure that it's coordinated to what you're seeing down here. If it's not, you may need to go into your computer's time settings and synchronize your time to the UTC time. So once all that's configured, you should start to see things happening. So down here, you may notice that there is a green bar and a second counter over here. So the way that Whisper works is that it receives in 120-second blocks and then decodes what it receives and puts it in the report window here. So basically what that means is once this green bar gets up to the end, you'll see this decode light up, which means it's decoding some information that it received, and then it should post it to this window up here. Okay, so on this latest cycle, you can see that I received 4 stations at 23:58 UTC. So let's take a look at the columns in the decode window and what they mean. The first column, UTC, is the time at which each station was received. The second column, dB, is the relative signal strength of the received station at my location. The next column, dt, is any difference in time between my time and what the station is reporting. The frequency column is the exact frequency at which the station was received on. The drift column shows any drift between my received frequency and what the transmit frequency should be. The call column is, of course, the call sign of the station that I'm receiving. The grid column shows the grid square that the station is located in. The dBm column is the station's reported transmit power. And the last column reports miles. Now I've changed that in my settings. By default, this is set to kilometers, but this shows the relative distance away from my location that each station is. So as I mentioned before, you have the option as to whether or not you want to upload this data to the WSPRnet servers so that you can see what it looks like on their maps. So because I've got mine turned on, let's go over to the WSPRnet website and see what that looks like. So I've navigated over to the WSPRnet website. Now I'll leave a link to this in the description below, but this is a great resource for everything related to Whisper. There's forums and information and all kinds of stuff that you can find on this website. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to navigate over here to the map page and take a look at that. So you can see that by default, it comes up and shows a map of all of the current Whisper activity on 30 meters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow that down a bit so that we can take a look at just my reports. So in order to see my station's results in particular, what I'm going to do is scroll down below the map. You can see there's a few fields to fill in so that we can see my station's reports. So the first thing I'm going to do is change this over to 40 meters, since that's what we're currently working with. So by default, all these colors here represent different stations, but you can change that by ticking this toggle on so that each path is colored by band. I'm going to leave it off for now. So in this field, we can enter a particular call sign so that we can filter reports from or by that particular station. So in this case, I'm going to type in my call sign so we see just my results. The next two fields are the latitude and longitude to center the map on. So I'm going to type in my rough coordinates for that. So the next option is to choose the time period that we want to see reporting for. If I click the pull down, you can see that we can go as little as 10 minutes or up to 24 hours. For this video, I'm going to choose 24 hours since I've had this thing going for a while and I'm curious to see where I've been hearing stations from. This toggle here turns on a day-night overlay. I'm going to click that just for fun. And this button here would allow us to exclude special call signs for things like balloon telemetry as indicated here. So now that I've got everything set the way that I want, I'm going to click the update button here to refresh the map. Okay, so as you can see, I've received quite a few stations on 40 meters over the last 24 hours. You can see I've even heard stations as far away as Australia. So to narrow things up a bit, I've changed the time interval from 24 hours to 10 minutes. So now we're only looking at the stations that I've received in the last 10 minutes. Now, of course, you can see this is my location here in the middle. I've got a few stations I've received in the southeast part of the United States, and a fair number of them over here in Europe. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. Okay, so as you can see, I've got 4 stations that I'm receiving here in North America. Got one down here on the border of South and North Carolina, one down here on the border of Florida and Alabama, and then a couple over here in eastern Texas. So now I've panned over to Europe here. You can see there's a couple of stations in southeast England that I can hear, and then there's a couple here, it looks like in Germany, and one up here in the Netherlands. That's pretty much going to wrap things up for receiving Whisper on my SDRplay RSPduo. I'll have some links down in the description below to the software packages that I used, so if you want to learn more or if you want to set this up yourself, please check out those links. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to leave a comment or subscribe, feel free to do that as well. Thanks for watching.